women will sacrifice their family for happiness, and men will sacrifice their happiness for family. We know that women initiate 80% of the divorces based on not feeling, happy.
I don't have a lot of regrets, but my biggest life regret is not having children. I got married. I got married, I think I was 29. The only time we had sex was when I was ovulating.
So that again, not an excuse to cheat or do anything against your mate or spouse, but man, it's tough out there now because you just can open your phone and see 7,000 different women in 7,000 different positions, poses, toes, breasts, whatever you like, you can get it. You know what I mean? So it's tough, man.
Sex is often a chore for women. When we don't have the desire to roll over to the side or climb on top, it's looked at as a form of rejection. And now, our husband or our man, he feels, he has to go outside the home to fulfill all his needs and stuff. And, wives don't like that.
What's up, everybody? My name is Mel, and welcome to Life Coaching by Mel. Here at Life Coaching by Mel, we speak truth regarding the nuclear family. And if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get each and every one of my videos. Hit that like button for me. Hit me in that comment section. Today is going to be an invigorating conversation that I know you want to contribute to. And be sure to share this with at least one person. Let's get into today's topic. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an amazing conversation for you today. I recently came into contact with a lot of people, a group of people actually I was referring to and speaking with them. It was a bunch of millennials, and they was talking about how fearful they are of marriage, fearful of the outcome of what can happen. They say the inevitable outcome would be divorce or some type of settlement they have to go through where they lose half of their income. We got to have that conversation today. Where did that fear come from? I want to ask for individuals from the next generation, what responsibility, what ownership. Let's get to that resolution. Let's get to that opinion, whatever the case may be. We're going to have the discussion. What is the true nature of the cause of this fear? Let's talk about that. I have four great individuals here. We're going to introduce them, allow them to introduce themselves, starting from my left. We're going to start with Bridget.
Hello, I am Bridget Cunningham. From Atlanta, Georgia. Do you want my opinion on that? What do you want?
And I do apologize. I did not introduce the first question. Sorry about that. Do you believe that the nuclear family is the ideal path for the Black family?
I think it's the ideal path for some people. Some Black families. Honestly, I don't think it's for everybody. I don't. It would be great if everybody had the white picket fence and, the dog and the 3 kids and the husband and the wife. But I really don't think that it's meant for everybody. Like me, I don't have to remarry. I could have a life partner and be good with that. We don't necessarily have to be married, but that's just me and where I am right now and with my experiences in life.
Thank you for that. Troy.
Hi, my name is Troy Knowles. I currently reside in Dallas, Texas. I am the father of 3 amazing adult children. I like to say I'm on the 4th level of empty nesting, and I'll explain that later if opportunity comes up, because there's levels to empty nesting. Me and my wife Tamara have been together for probably, right at 35 years. Shouldn't say probably. We've been married for 30 of those. My answer to the nuclear family, I have a different definition of nuclear family. I think I enjoy my family. It's a source of pride for me. I've started 3 multi-million-dollar businesses. I've been rich, poor, and settled right back kind of in the middle where I didn't build my life around money. I built my life around experiences like I'm having here, relationships like I have with you, Mel. But when I think about the nuclear family, I think the nuclear family was actually a mistake or a misstep. and we miss our extended family. When I grew up, I had no less than 30 to 40 cousins who lived within close proximity to me, aunts, and even non-family members who are still considered family, who were people who live right next door to us or 2 streets down. And I feel like once we started going into the nuclear family, we pulled away and we broke the community by separating into blocks of 5 people instead of blocks of 50 people.
Sound like something we got to unpack even more going forward. Sharitha.
Well, you know me with this muting. I have to echo what Bridget said. I think it depends. For those that I guess are more elevated, mature, and secure with themselves, maybe, but for the rest, the nuclear family does not work well. And, you know, I think we've all seen it on display all the time. Now, allow me to expound on that. I know we all kind of fall short on this one, not just Black people, because we are really ignorant about ourselves. We don't even understand our own nature. Women don't understand male nature, and men don't fully understand female nature, right? And so we think we do. And to me, I think religion is at the center of it all. Religion sold us a fantasy, an ideology that women and men naturally belong together. When on full, and by the way, I'm sorry, I have to back up because my name is Sharitha and I am married. I have 3 sons, but my youngest is with my husband now. So anyway, religion sold us, I think, a fantasy, right? That we're naturally supposed to be together. When on full display, we see quite the opposite playing out. We see just how inverse and antagonistic our relationships and marriages really are. Yet we remain in denial, you know? So most of them are like trying to fit a square peg into a circle. We have to, you know, those of us who are married or have been married, we remember what that's like. We have to work extremely hard to make that work. And even then, sometimes it's not good enough. So we have to stop and ask ourselves, why is that? And that's the hard part. People don't want to ask that question. Why is that? But I love digging deep into why.
And DeMarcus.
Hello, everyone. My name is DeMarcus Williams. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I guess my opinion of this is going to be, this is kind of a great conversation because I guess everybody's going to have their special points of view. I've been married 27 years, happily married. I am a proponent of, I guess, what you would call the standard nuclear family because that's what, you know, I'm currently a part of, what I grew up around. So I do support it, and I think it's a positive thing. You know, I really don't have a lot of negativity from my point of view. I think that's where this is going to get great because you're going to get to hear perspectives from different situations as to why people feel the way they feel. So, but just for starters, that's my intro. So good to see you all tonight. And I do apologize. I am out of town, so I'm going to try to hang in there for the whole thing, but I'm here.
And I appreciate you, brother. Now, anybody
no
have, for what's been said so far, did anybody have any response?
You know what? It's interesting. You know, I've heard and understand that you know, the divorce rate. I've heard a couple of stats that surprised me, or not surprised me, but a full 90% of relationships started prior to 30 end, right? And as a man who's been married 30 years, and I see DeMarcus is married 27, I don't understand what happily married is. I'm married, meaning, you know, there's times where we're not speaking to each other. There's times where we're, you know, holding hands and skipping. Well, one of my knees won't allow me to skip, but we be trying to skip, right? And it is the full spectrum that we're dealing with. So I'm in year 30, and I told you on the last podcast, I don't give advice because I've never been in a 30th year of relationship. But the the things that we're dealing with in year 30 are way different than what we dealt with in year 5, 10, maybe 15 or 20. And so I like to tell people we're on our fourth marriage. And it's because we're totally different people in totally different spaces. So I don't disagree with Bridget and Sharitha about once you get to a point, do we really, need to be in this thing? Because the way society is set up right now, the things that I had to access to, or my wife had to get access to, you needed to be married. Those things are available without the lifelong commitment. And furthermore, and I hate that I'm talking this long, most of us who are born in the 60s and 70s have never seen a healthy example of what a relationship was, right? A healthy marriage. We've seen my parents have been married 55 years. I feel like they should have got a divorce in 1983, right? But the advice that they give at 70 and or 75 and 83 is, oh, you should just do this and do this and do that. And the information is based in a time when women didn't have the option to be considered full humans. I'm kind of going back to that too, but they don't have autonomy over their own lives. And so to get out of their father's house, they had to go to their husband's lives. And so I don't think we should look that far back to say, oh, what happened to the good old days? Well, we know grandpa had a family across town, and grandma, 3 of them kids wasn't his. But he raised them like they were.
Yeah.
I know that's right.
What I would also throw in there, and that's a good point, Troy. And this is why I feel like we're going to learn a lot about some backgrounds today, because I know that point of view that you just said. I know people that live that point of view. I'm different. I mean, every time when I say that, a lot of times people don't. Oh, no. But I did grow up in a super healthy home where it was surrounded by love all the time. Dad was home every day. Mama was smiling and cooking, and they was holding hands and hugged up. And I adopted that as
Yeah.
I moved through life. And that's why, not only me wrong, me and my wife, we've been married 27 years. It hasn't been beautiful every single day. So I don't want to give that ridiculous impression that it's a perfect thing every day. But if I'm judging happiness, yes, me and my wife are extremely happy together. You know what I mean? As we've navigated through, the ups and downs of life and marriage. And as we are at this point right now, I couldn't ask for nothing more. But I think, again, we are going to learn a little bit about what we experienced growing up, what we saw, how we handle different things, and that's what shapes our opinion of what we feel about this thing today.
Can I say one more thing to that? And I
Of
don't mean to
course.
dominate this conversation, but you said something that was opposite of what you said right after that, right? And I'm gonna say this: you've seen your mom and dad doing this, that, and the other. Now we know the previous generation, they were taught, or they taught us, you don't argue in front of the kids. You don't disagree in front of the kids. We have to be on one accord, right?
Sure.
And so once, my wife comes from 2 parents who were married a long time, and me as well. And we started down that path. Well, we have to be in agreement. We have to be a united front for the kids, right? But what I've come to learn is when the children don't see conflict within the marriage and how conflict is resolved, they leave and don't know how to resolve it in their personal relationship. So we argued in front of our kids. We fought fair. We had rules that we fought within. But I had the same experience as you growing up, but I didn't find out until I was 40 that the major disagreements or the major points of contention that my parents had that I didn't know how to do with my wife, because I didn't see. When I say healthy, like from what you described, you say happy, I say healthy, right?
Okay.
And so your kids are going to understand. I remember one time my wife didn't speak to me for 2 or 3 days for something that I did or didn't do. I forgot, right? But she texted me and said she had a flat over off Harry Hines, and I live downtown. And she hadn't spoke to me in a couple of days. So I got up, I went, and I fixed her flat. I tapped her bumper, and she pulled off, right? And so right there, the commitment was there. The love was there, but we just weren't on the same page. And if I would have been in my feelings, I would have said, well, shit, call AAA. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so in that example, I still covered and protected my wife whatever she was mad about for, I don't remember. She might have been right. She might not have been right. But I didn't break up the whole thing because because we weren't speaking
Of
at
course
that
not.
time. I'm sorry, ladies. We just
Oh
dominated.
no,
That's
that
just
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
no, that was a good point that you brought up. It really was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. And you guys kind of hit on this next question, so let's dive right into it. The blacks overall struggle with between 72 to 80% of unwed mothers rate. This is a 180-degree shift from the less than a quarter of black infants born to unmarried mothers in the 1960s. Without saying the phrase "white people" or any adjacent phrase, who is most
yeah.
responsible for this shift? We're going to start with Sharitha on this.
You gonna start with me, huh? Who is the most responsible for the shift? Yeah, I can't really. I guess I have to back up a little bit. This increase in unwed mothers, I feel was a gradual one. Sorry, you guys hear my son in the background. Back when our parents were born, probably the 40s and 50s and whatnot, women's choices were extremely limited. As I don't know if that was you, Troy, that said that, but I look, for instance, like my grandmother, they had to have a man in the household, as you said, or it was the government that would take care of them. There was also a culture that heavily pushed and influenced women to be made honest, right? So women married or they stayed in relationships, even extremely abusive ones. And, so a lot of times when we hear of couples that have been married for like 50, 60 years, that was mostly because the wife really didn't have much choice, as you've already said. By the time women's lib came on the scene, a good bit of those wives didn't even have a bank account in their own name. They couldn't even get credit cards or loans or anything. It all just seemed so foreign to them initially when they could. But now when we fast forward to when the Gen Xers were born, two major things happened during this time frame. Women, or our mothers, were starting to enter the workplace, right? They were then slowly allowed to, have their some form or semblance of independence, right? Bank accounts and credit cards and get loans and all that good shit, right? And so women were finally beginning to experience some level of independence, and they liked it. Now, number two, our men and our fathers and so forth, they had been sent off to fight senseless wars. So women were having to hold it down on their own. And when a good bit of our men returned from deployment, and a lot of them had PTSD, and they got hooked on all kinds of drugs, and which opened the door to abuse and abandonment. And, we're just talking all levels of dysfunction and discord in the household. And hence the government, they became our financial caretakers, right? And we all know what happened next. So the government and society at large was like, okay, ladies, I see you. You proved you can hold it down. You got your village to help you with the kids, your aunties and them and everybody, is making it work. So when you let's just fast forward the speed 2 times, right? To the Gen X as adults. We're now adults and grown. By this time, we had been long experiencing broken households. Women had the head of household title or thing on lock, whether she was an educated woman, a working woman, or just sheer poverty living in the projects. And I've seen them all, growing up and through the years. But I'm going to stop right there because I know we're going to dive deeper into why a lot more Gen Xers and beyond are not too phased anymore by the nuclear family. So I'll just pause.
Hey, hurry up.
Gotcha. DeMarcus.
Well, that was excellent points there that you made, and I'm you know, and I definitely think that's an excellent point of view coming from a woman. I'm not going to try to speak from a woman's point of view on that because that question is great to ask. Why come there's unwed women? If I'm understanding that was the question correct, was that right, Mel?
Well, who's most responsible for this
Who's most
increase?
responsible? Yeah, I'm gonna say to some degree just the changing of the times, which incorporates a lot of what the young lady mentioned, and also just the shift in women, men, whatever, looking thinking that they can just do it on their own, not feeling like they have to do it. Getting married, of course, is a choice. You know what I mean? It's always going to be a choice to do. So the baby boomer time, that was kind of like what was expected to get married, and we all know the story about that. And as we continue to shift in times, and which is going to be different for millennials too after our time, who knows what their situation is going to be. But as we continue to shift in time, you just start getting to a place to where people figure out, no, we don't necessarily have to do that. I can make my own money, I can pay my own bills, I can live my own life. I can make my own decisions. It's just a natural growth pattern. And then, you have that choice to make. And I can't put my finger on one particular thing as the reason of it, but I would just probably lean on more just the changing of the times and having those additional options to make those different decisions.
Good stuff, Bridget.
So the question was who's responsible
Yeah,
for
who would you say is most responsible for that increase in out of wedlock births from the 60s?
um I think each person is responsible for themselves. I want to bring up I don't know if you guys pay attention to the Cam Newton story, him and his girlfriend, fiance, whatever she is to him, and the Nick Cannon situation, how he has, I can't remember, 7 or 8 kids by about 6 different women.
Too many to count and keep up with.
Right. But those women made a decision to have children, not with the fathers, but they're all happy. I don't necessarily think they're all necessarily happy because of the money, because I know I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, but I don't think it's the end result. I don't think that's the only thing. But I do feel like everybody is responsible, and as long as everybody is happy and not causing problems, I hey, I don't disagree with it. As long as, because everybody is not going to be able to live their life the same. Everybody is not going to be happy the same, but everybody needs to take accountability for their decisions and raise the children right, regardless if it's in a household that's not traditional or not. As long as the children are being loved, I feel like that's the most important thing.
All right, Troy.
Facts.
It's interesting that we prioritize happiness over function and form and development, right? And I seen a stat. I heard someone said. I heard someone say, women will sacrifice their family for happiness, and men will sacrifice their happiness for family. And so what I see is we know that women initiate 80% of the divorces based on not feeling, happy. And I think, being a married man, you need that balance of when we say raise children right, what's right? Like they need their mom's nurturing and things of that nature, but they also need the discipline and structure that normally the father provides. It's funny because it was kind of reversed in my family, but I don't blame anyone in particular for the rise in single parent homes. Back to what I was saying, if a couple was unmarried, their grandmother normally lived very close by, their grandfather, their aunts, their uncles, and so there was not a lack of characters or people in the community or in the house that in the on the street that could help. But I'm gonna tell you what I think is the culprit for all of it. I want y'all to go look at a movie and a report. The movie I want to assign, if I can assign, is called the Eagle Pruitt Eagle Myth. It's about the first housing projects in St. Louis, where men who were from the South, who were disenfranchised, who couldn't find jobs, moved up north. And then housing was made available to women and children as long as there was no man present. And men made decisions. And I seen this man who was probably about 40 looking for work and just was crying, saying, I have to leave my family in order for my family to survive. Right. And that gets painted over. And so what people would do was they would come in and look for men's-sized shoes. And if there was a man at the house, you lost your housing. And to me, a woman is going to protect those children and that home, right? So watch that. But number two, this report blew me away, and Mel, I'm gonna get it to you. The number one thing that caused the rise in single parent homes was the birth control pill. Okay, because women would normally limit sexual access to men who were of a particular quality because of the risk of getting pregnant, right? And once women were not burdened by laying down with someone and getting up pregnant, they decided that they would compete. And what they're competing for is normally the same man, right? Before, when I was a young man, to get sexual access to a woman, you probably had to hold her hand for 6 months. You had to walk with her. You had to sing R&B songs. And you had to prove that you were worth her laying down with. Now, a woman will give you her body and a baby before you know her middle name, right? But I blame men. I blame men for all unwanted pregnancies because they have the fluid to make it happen, right? That's just me because I'm a man. I hold men accountable. So I don't blame women, but I do blame the societal change and like birth control.
Gotcha. Troy, you found a creative way to mention white people, but didn't say it directly. About no, I'm just joking with you.
Birth control for white folks.
Any responses to anyone's take there?
Yeah, I just want to Troy, that was a very interesting point about the women and what's the word? Is it chastity? I don't know. I can't remember the word, but
women held other women accountable. They were like, "Nah, girl, don't." But then once they took away that risk of getting pregnant, now women were like, "Hey, there was a commercial saying when the banks compete, the people win." You know
But you know what though, I do want to say it, like you said. I mean, it's really both have responsibility.
Yeah.
Because especially in this day and age, I think it was a little different when women didn't have quite as much liberation and rights and things like that. But I have to put the responsibility on myself and my fellow sisters. I cannot ignore that. We have got to learn to choose better. And that starts with our own mental health and how we govern ourselves and our mind, and that could be spiritually, financially, whatever. We got to do better and take care of ourselves. We are in a position now where we don't need to have a man, I guess, you could say, but there's still a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And it's in such high numbers now. And I think we're going to get to it, so I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but I just want to say, it's not just the men's responsibility. I think we both share our responsibility, but at the end of the day, in this day and age, I think women have more accountability than men.
Yeah, I agree.
Good stuff.
I have two daughters, right? So they're older. And when they were younger, I was telling them, hey, if two lay down, you're the only one who can get up with a baby. You know what I'm saying? And back to what I was talking about, birth control, right? Before, birth control was not giving people sexual access, right? And women held women accountable for that. And, So I'm not, like I say, I'm not blaming women. I'm blaming, like the market said, the societal change. And the question I'll ask, if I can ask a question, is what is the benefit of marriage today compared to what it was 30, 50, or 70 years ago? You can have everything you want inside of a marriage and not have the government uh, in your business, because marriage is a contract.
Yep.
And a lot of people think it's a
It's a
contract with God,
partnership.
the church.
It's a business.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's a business. And if you don't think it's a business, get a divorce.
Right.
Then you'll find
They
out.
should put LLC at the end of on the nuptials when people get married.
Yep.
Bridget, you had something you wanted to say a moment ago.
Oh, I
I'm
was
sorry.
going to say I agree with everything Sharitha said, except I do need a man, girl. I need, I need and want a man. Okay.
Well, you know, the thing is, women, we are resource driven. Like at the end of the day, we're resource driven. And when you step out of that, needing a man and wanting is, you know, is two different things. And I think sometimes, I think what I'm hearing from you though is you want to have a man in your life, but you at the base layer you don't need one. But there are some women in positions that, you know, they actually, oh, I need this man because I can't cut it for myself for whatever reason.
No, that's not why.
So yeah, right. That's why I said for you, it's like, okay, I want you're at that place where you know, you're like, hey, I'm good, you know, either way when it comes to that and finances and resources, but you just want to have the companionship of a man and things like that. Yeah. So, but yeah, we slipping down a slope here where, you know, now the next generation is like, I don't want to deal with I don't want to deal with men at all.
Let's go down that path, because and I'm gonna let Troy actually answer this question, because you guys went right into a perfect segue to our next question. The commonly used phrase by Gen X's, y'all started this, is my opinion. By black women, I don't need a man. I'm independent, single by choice. I'm waiting on God. Troy, you started off here. What impact have these phrases had on the black community or the black family?
It's let me just tell you the impact it's had on me. I was a traditional husband. My wife didn't work the first 20 years of our relationship, our marriage. I'm sorry. She worked up until, you know, we got married. The baby came. We homeschooled the kids, right? But when my son, the one you met, is the baby, he's 26. When he got in the 11th grade, I looked at my wife and I said, look, and I'm very blunt, and I have to be blunt because that's how people understand. I said, you have a crazy wild card husband, and your kids are out of the house. You need your own identity, because I don't know if you want to be here or you have to be here. Because in a relationship, to me, want is higher than need. You need me. You can't upset me. So I need you. We need to start working on what your career is going to be, so you can have an identity outside of me and the kids. Because the kids is gone, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? And so she decided she wanted to be a realtor. So we put her in school, and she's, you know, took about 2 or 3 years to really get going with our support, my support, and now she earns more than I do, right? Because I need to know. Because I don't need you. I could cook, I could clean, I could do everything. You know, I got a vasectomy. She post, ain't no babies coming out of there, right? My wife in her 60s, right? I married an older woman. She's a boomer. I'm a Gen X. That's a whole nother discussion. But I wanted to be in position to be wanted and not needed, and it changed the dynamic of our relationship. And once my wife got to the point where she was making just much or more money than me, it changed our relationship, took the pressure off of me, and it changed the relationship with our daughters. Because our daughters looked at our marriage and say, I don't want to depend on dad, or I don't want to have to go to my husband and say, hey, can I get $100 out the bank to do this? And my daughters and my wife started taking girls trips, and they started doing things because she didn't necessarily need my approval, which I was always fair, but I didn't want someone to be a dependent. I didn't need a wife. I had 3 dependents. They were children. I didn't want my wife to be a dependent. I need her to be an independent thinker. I need to give some gifts sometime. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, this is for me, and it didn't come out of the money I earned. Oh, this is cool. And so I think, no, I don't think women do need a man. But if you say that, you start to believe the words that come out of your mouth. But to me, it's better to be desired. I don't want to be needed. I want to be desired. And that's why I believe we've survived what Demarcus is about to go through, which is once the kids leave and once the need to work together, like, do you know each other? Because we're back to square one. We're dating again. You know what I'm saying? We had to relearn each other. And that I don't need a man has really put us on a path um, to a non-committal, right? Not being committed. And so at the same time, I'm saying something different. I'd rather be wanted than needed.
Good stuff. And Troy, thank you for coming, brother. I know you got to dip out. We appreciate you,
Yeah, as
man.
a father, my daughter just texted me and said she needed something. And so even though my daughter's 30, right? Uh, and I want to say this since I'm leaving. I am a husband, right? Uh, and meaning I'm a father, I'm a husband, and uh, I will always defer to those things. And but it's a lifelong commitment that I've made. It has nothing to do with my wife. It has nothing to do with my children. Because what happens is when it don't feel good, then I wouldn't do it. But this is a commitment that I made. So I'm not looking for the accolades or for a pat on the back from them to do what I promised myself I'll do. Last thing I'll say, Mel, because we talk about a whole bunch of stuff. I can't. I, people ask me, what about being unfaithful? Do you cheat on your wife? No, I can't cheat on my wife. I don't want to cheat on myself because I'm the one who made the promise. So if I go outside of my marriage, it has nothing to do with her. It was that I cheated myself. And so once I said, okay, Troy, I love you, I love myself, and I made this commitment, I'm gonna hold myself accountable to it. It has nothing to do with her. If I can't control myself, what can I control? So
Good stuff. Good stuff. We appreciate you, brother.
all right,
Enjoy
my
your
man.
evening.
All right,
Yes,
Troy.
sir.
Take care.
Demarcus, we'll come to you on that, brother.
Well, it's ironic Troy had to go because I was gonna, I wanted to kind of, go with him a little bit on what he was mentioning. And it's not that I don't agree with sometimes you lose yourself with your kids because I know I got friends that's in those situations where the marriage basically became all about the kids. When the kids finally grew up and they left, then they didn't even know each other because they had spent so much time pouring into the kids, kind of as a buffer to pretty much keep from dealing with each other. You know what I mean? However, my situation is not like that. You know what I mean? So again, from my perspective, me and my wife, we never did lose ourselves, despite raising our kids. They're all grown now, but we didn't have that issue when they finally got grown and they get independent. Now we don't. We got to try to learn ourselves again because we never lost each other. You know what I mean? We stayed together and stayed committed through it all. Raising the kids, like I mentioned again. First to say, my marriage is not perfect. I know sometimes it's gonna come across as, oh, every time he speaks, he's talking like it's all good. It is all good, but it's not perfect. But I'm one of those rare people that I am in a happy, healthy, good relationship, just a normal relationship. Do she get mad at me when I leave the toilet seat up? Of course. Do I get mad at her when I get the credit card bill and Amazon on there 500? Of course. But for the most part, it's all good. So again, I'm in it for both. I want it to be healthy. I want to be happy. Above all, I want her to be happy, and that's what we strive to do. So I know I probably got off a topic a little bit, but
No,
to
you
get back
good.
to the question, um, I'm trying to put this in perspective. I don't need a man. I think the quick answer to that, because I've spoken enough, is it's true. Nobody needs a man. Nobody really needs a woman if you look at it black and white like that. But if we choose to be with a woman and a woman chooses to be with a man, and it's not always just a business decision. It could be just simply they love each other and they like being with each other and they decided to tackle life together and that's what they did. So and I'll cut off there because I'm rambling.
No, you good. You
No,
spot
it's
on,
good.
actually.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
sir.
was
Bridget, coming to you on that. What impact has this had on the black family?
what saying that Wait a minute. Give me the question again, because we got off. We didn't went left,
My fault.
and there.
No, you good, brother. For any them Gen X women, you know how y'all do. You were just talking about it there.
Right.
When y'all use those phrases, I don't need a man. I'm independent, single by choice. I'm waiting on the Lord.
Yeah.
What impact have those phrases had on the Black family?
Well, yeah, I think it has a huge effect on the Black family, because the daughters are going to listen to what their mothers are saying, and if they grew up in a single household and their mother did fine by raising them without dad, then they're gonna feel like, oh, I'm just gonna get my career and I don't need a man. I can go ahead and have a baby and be a single mom too, and I'll be all right. I don't need a man. So yeah, I think a lot of people follow what they see instead of having their own mind and doing what they really want to do. That's
Nice.
how I feel.
Sharitha.
Hey, okay, wow, yeah. I'm pretty much probably going to be a echo chamber here, but I think, just when you hear women speak like that, especially like, they mean it. And here's why. And they say, I don't need a man, I don't want my own personal experience. And I'm currently in my second marriage, and I will say this, if I'm being honest here, hindsight is 2020. Now, let me preface everything I'm about to tell you with, I was not in abusive marriages. Okay. So I just want to state that, I repeat, I was not abused in my marriages. And yet I was still the happiest when I was single or in between marriages. And there was quite a gap before I remarried. I was happily single for 8 years before I married my husband now. And, he's a very sweet and attentive man. We get along for the most part. But I know you might be like, well, why, Sharitha, why did you get married again? It wasn't because I needed to. I had my own money, business, car, whatever. When I met him, I was doing okay. Even when I was struggling and I wasn't doing okay, I was okay. But there's something about programming and falling in love, which creates a euphoria that makes you stupid. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but that's exactly what happened. You get to know a man, you get all giggly and bright-eyed and hot in the pants. And, and having sexual relations too means, you have to be responsible. We've all said that here tonight. So you just, can't be out here willy-nilly. And next thing you know, I'm saying I do again. So I felt like I put myself back into a state of dependence, right? I threw caution to the wind, locked myself down, and it made me miserable, you guys. It really did. Now, I'm miserable, not like, oh my God, I want to pluck my eyes out, but us Gen X women, like that, we can make moves and flow how we want to and when we want to. And when that changes, oh my gosh, it hits hard. So now let me be clear. I'm not talking about bottom feeders and desperate low vibrational women. I'm talking about elevated women here. I'm referring to women who know themselves and are secure and know what they want. And they're tired of, and this is real talk here, they're tired of men trying to use or manipulate them and control them. And that, I'm not saying all men, so I just want to be clear on that. But I do think that that is a big thing that I see and observed and have experienced myself before. We want to be free. We want to be allowed. And I think Troy, I know he's gone, but I really commend him as well for what he said. He saw his wife and he said, hey, you need to have your own identity. You need to be able to do something take care of yourself, or, you know, if he's not available or not around or not able to, or just for whatever reason. So I really admire that, because that's what I mean by an elevated man. Not many men are like that. I think you got the needles in the haystack on here tonight, Mel.
For sure. I know how to pick them. No, I'm just playing. Any responses to what anyone said?
I'm just gonna say, just kind of backing off of Sharitha. That is why I'm such a free person. And that's why I feel like this is why I'm single, because I feel like I'm a great person. But anyway, I have to have a certain type of man. He has to be a free thinker. Like, I love what Troy said. I love that. A lot of men will not say, hey, you need to have your own identity outside of this marriage, outside of me. A lot of men want you to just be, no, I have to have my own identity. I want my man to have his own identity. I just wanted to say that's the type of man I need.
Yeah. I think, DeMarcus, if you're talking, I think DeMarcus, I think you muted yourself.
Oh, sorry about that. I'll just say that's 100%, Bridget, Sharitha. That's how it should be. You should be, having your own identity, and, and being able to, control your own destiny, so to speak. That's a perfect analogy to what I think would lead to more happiness, that freedom to be yourself, here I go again on my perfect life here, but yeah, me and my wife, we definitely free thinkers, and I love that about her. She has her own voice, and that's one of the things I love the most about her, is that the fact that she don't mind putting me in my place if I need to be put in my place. You know what I mean? So we try to keep it 50-50 from the beginning to where we are now, and hopefully beyond. So I definitely commend you both for having that ideology of wanting to be, independent, and wanting a man to recognize that. I think that's awesome.
Love it.
Indeed.
Good stuff there. Next question here. In almost 4 decades between 1970 and 2008, the divorce rate has more than doubled globally, from 2.6 divorces for every 1,000 married couples to 5.5. Sound like around y'all age group. Sound like it's y'all fault. But I want to ask, why are Gen X marriages failing? We're going to start with Bridget on this one.
Well, I think Gen X marriages are failing. I think, and don't get me wrong, but I think there's a lot of cheating going on. So there's a lot of divorcing going on because of that. And I think people just sometimes get bored, and instead of them watering their own grass, they look at what's greener. And then once they realize it's greener because it's fake, it's too late. I think a lot of that is going on with our Generation X. I do. Like I'm single, so I've met a lot of men that have been married all of their life, and they're newly divorced, and they're just hot in the pants. They just want to do everything, and it's like, because they're divorced because they cheated, because they got bored. They wanted to experience something new. It's cheating, which I'm not necessarily saying that cheating is should be a means for divorce. It depends on. I think you and I talked about this, Mel, in one situation. It depends on the situation, but people aren't having conversations. They're not communicating. They're not telling each other what they need and what they want from each other. So they just go out and fill a void with someone else.
Yeah. Yes.
Seeing what right there at home, what you can trust, what you have loved. You know, a lot of times people, I think in a marriage, you may fall in love, out of love, in love, out of love, you know, but you got to remember why you fell in love with that person in the beginning, why you married this person in the beginning, and work on that. You know, go back to the root of the relationship and not just say, oh, forget it. Let me go over here real quick. And then that person turns out to be the devil. You know, nobody is watering their own grass. They're just going for something new, and it's new, but it ain't good.
Good stuff. DeMarcus.
Bridget, that's an amazing point. I was going to actually piggyback off your communication piece because that's so true. Communication is the key, you know, in my opinion. And also, I will sprinkle a little bit of this. I don't know if you guys agree, but the advent of social media as well, when you mentioned about getting bored and the incredible amount of access to everybody's everything now with Instagram and all that, everybody's a model all of a sudden. Everybody's it's right in your face. You can't get away from it. I don't care if you just want to check the weather. Something gonna come down your feed, and it's somebody offering this, offering. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's readily, it's so accessible, and it's so easy to get distracted by everything that used to be sort of a mystery is just so it's just regular life now. So that again, not an excuse to cheat or do anything against your mate or spouse, but man, it's tough out there now because you just can open your phone and see 7,000 different women in 7,000 different positions, poses, toes, breasts, whatever you like, you can get it. You know what I mean? So it's tough, man. But again, back to the foundation of communication. If you can keep that solid, you should be fine because there's no reason to go looking for something else when you with your presumed mate, love of your life, that you shouldn't be able to work out right there at home. So I definitely agree with that.
That's true.
Good stuff. Sharita.
Man, you got people on here I can't argue with. I can't argue against. We all think the same. Um I think why are Gen X marriages failing? Just like the market said, I mean, information is social media, age of Aquarius. We're in the information age. Women and men, but women now have like way more access to information, which gives them options and the power to choose. As I've taken us back over the history of kind of what happened with us, and when there was a time when we did not have those freedoms. Women, we came to the conclusion that we've been tricked about who we are and who we should be. And now society is set up such that women can now make choices. We don't have to stay in horrible marriages. So now, we can leave just like men can leave. So, and also, like, just to mention with the communication, as a woman, I have to speak from that point of view, but there's much to be desired in that department when it comes to men. Okay. It's the most men, not you, DeMarcus, though, not you or Troy. Y'all different. And my husband as well. He's not bad. We got some room to grow, but it's no secret that women tend to be superior communicators. And that's mostly because we have different brain structure and wiring than men. For the most part, men, y'all don't want to hear nothing we got to say half the time. Right? Tell the truth, shame the devil. Communication is like huge for us, but we don't get it enough. Which is why women got to commune a lot with each other, because men, y'all do things differently. Now, I want to add to that sex, despite popular opinion, sex is really, and I'm going to speak some real hardcore truth here. And again, ladies, if this does not apply to you, and the shoe, if the shoe fit, wear it and buy a purse and a belt to go with it. But if it don't, then okay. Sex is often a chore for women, especially women who have children and or they work. We're tired, we're drained. Sex for women is more mental and emotional than it is physical, right? We fall in love with the fantasy of you. For men, it's mostly physical. I mean, I'm not saying it's all physical, but it's mostly physical. And when we don't have the desire to roll over to the side or climb on top, it's looked at as a form of rejection. And now, our husband, our man, he feels, he has to go outside the home to fulfill all his needs and stuff. And, wives don't like that. And yeah, and I think you mentioned it, Bridget, that the infidelity and things like that, creep in. So where do we begin to like reconcile all of this? I have no idea.
So if I got this right, Gen X ain't nothing but some cheaters. That's what y'all trying to say. Like, it ain't. Is there anything, if y'all have to rack in y'all brain, is there anything other than
seriously
like, specific to the Gen X that's maybe different than what millennials or boomers are experiencing?
I think millennials are more open about their sexuality. And, I mean, you got, especially, I mean, if you're listening to the music that's out here now, I heard one of the rappers like, my girlfriend got a girlfriend, and everybody is this fluid, right? But Gen Xers, we're on that line of, we remember, we were like, in that age range where we were young enough to remember what it was like to have that traditional nuclear family. There was some chastity there where women was like, oh no, you had to do. But then at the same time, we were going through this other phase and of liberation with things. And so our generation was caught, I think, right there smack in the middle of, two things here. So the millennials, they got a little taste of, oh, I seen, my mom was doing this on her by herself and on her own, and daddy was doing his thing, and what. So they are like, anything goes right now. And a lot of times it's unfortunate, but the fathers are not in the home, even more so than when it was when I was coming up, So it's a real epidemic right now. And that's why I think a lot of these, millennials and Gen Zers, they're so fluid with everything because there was no model structure there for them to follow. But they have untamed energy out here, and that's not good. That is scary. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing now. If you look at them, they don't even respect Gen Xers or the elders anymore. But that's a whole nother podcast, Mel.
Yeah. You guys have anything to add to that, or now we can move forward?
I was going to say, Mel, I think you may remember me saying what Sharitha said about women feeling like sex is a chore. That was on our very first podcast. Yeah. I think and I'm not trying to blame everything on men, but a lot of times, especially if a woman is working, she's coming home and then she's cooking, she's trying to clean, she's trying to get ready for the next day, and then all of a sudden the man wants sex. Men need to realize that foreplay starts before the bedroom. And in order for a woman not to feel like sex is a chore, you got to kind of, if she's tired, you can get her in the mood with, if she's in the kitchen cooking, just go up behind her and kiss her on the neck. Do something, just lead into it. Not just as soon as you get in the bed, you climbing all on.
I will say, Bridget, I definitely want to be on that panel when we get into that, because I can speak on that quite a bit too.
Okay.
Just FYI.
Okay.
Because I agree with you 1,000,000%. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lost art of, you know, people understanding that it's not just climb on top of somebody and, you
Yeah.
know, and then roll over and go to sleep.
Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. But we'll say that for a later date. Let's go to our next question here. So, a statistic survey in the U.S. revealed that 27% of the respondents didn't want to get married in 2017. Millennials, Gen Zs, are rapidly losing interest in marriage. Now, these are y'all kids. These are y'all children. What role does Gen X have to play in this? We're going to start with DeMarcus.
Well, yeah, I will. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and also Sharitha was kind of talking about it just now. It's just a shift in the times. You know what I mean? It's like the baby boomer time back in grandma time and all that is a different situation. You know, it's like, yeah, you get married, nobody asks no questions. That's just how it is. The shift started happening some with Gen X where we doing a little bit more independent stuff. You still got people with 1 foot in, 1 foot out as far as their beliefs with marriage and everything. And now these millennials, it's just wide open. You know what I mean? It's like you got, you know, no disrespect, cause I love everybody, but you got all these different, you know, genders and different things, and it's just a wide open, wild wild west out here now. So it's a free thinkers paradise right now, and I think that enables everybody to make some different decisions that some of us other generations may not agree with, or we may not can see their point of view, but it's the times they're living in, the times they're growing up in, so that affects it greatly. So to me, it's just a shift in time, and whatever generation comes after the millennials, God bless them, who knows what's going to be going down, you know what I mean? So it's just, that's just how it is.
Nice. Sharitha.
Oh man, that is hilarious. But yes, so true. Um, what was the question? What role do we play or something? And they're
Right.
losing interest. Um, I think, I guess, again, from just a woman's point of view, we know what we experienced and how it makes us feel. And so I think our children kind of look at that and they see what happens with us. We don't really give much credit to just how much our children observe. They're sponges. And even though they don't say anything, and that's the one thing too about this generation, because we didn't have all of the technology and things and phones and social media, we were forced to kind of talk and learn to communicate. This generation don't. My son could be the oldest son could be in the same house with me and want to send me a text, and he's sitting on the couch across. I'm like, boy, you gonna talk to me? So there's no communication to really let us know, or feedback mechanism to let us know that they are observing and watching and taking in what we're going through and dealing with. So what we as women do, we often encourage, our children or our sisters and our daughters and our nieces to learn to stand, on their own. Okay, stand on your own. You can want a man or a husband if you want, but not because you need to. And I think also women in this generation with Gen Z and stuff are recognizing that men deep down want or need companionship and sex and family or whatever, but don't necessarily want to hear or respect our feelings and emotions. And it can go both ways too. We're now discovering that most men, not all, as we've seen here on you guys on this panel, and those some of us near and dear to us, not all, they just don't have the capacity to relate to us on that level that we want and need. So it becomes, this tug of war. But the younger generation does not want to. They don't want to play game. It's like they don't have the patience, right, or the tolerance for it. Gen Xers, we have it a little bit, but they have been watching us growing up, and they're like, I don't want to be bothered with that. And I know that to be the case because I've spoken with quite a few millennials and Gen Zers. And yeah, they're like, no, there's like, I saw what you went through. I've witnessed this, I've witnessed that. I don't need that. I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to put up with it. So yeah, that's what I think.
Good stuff, Bridget.
I've talked to different Gen Xers, millennials, and I'm going to speak on the men's side. The men don't want the responsibility of a relationship. And I'm like, the responsibility. But I guess it's a huge responsibility, and they just don't want that. And then the women, it's like they want it, but they don't want the full commitment. Yeah. They don't want the full commitment, So I don't know where that came from. I don't know. I get it. But it's not okay. I'm not going to say it's not how I feel because I think I'm on the fence a little bit. Like I have one of my guy friends, he's traveling the world. He said, Bridget, I wouldn't be able to do that if I had a wife and kids at home. If he's just going from country to country to country to country. And he's trying to just figure out where he wants to live. And then he said he'll settle down. I have another friend that he's just doing everything he wants to do. He said, I don't want to have to tell someone where I'm going or say, hey, is this okay? Or, he said, I just want to get up and do it. I don't want to have to think about somebody else's feelings. So that's what's going on. I think people are not wanting, they just don't want the responsibility. They don't want to have to think about someone else's feelings before they make a decision for themselves.
Gotcha. Any responses to anyone's take? So I have a question, and it's feel free to not answer if you don't want. Do you personally take any responsibility for either in DeMarcus and Sharitha's case for your children's want to be married, or in Bridget, in your case, maybe the millennials or Gen Zs around you and their want to be married? Do you take that personal?
Let me make sure I'm understanding the question. You're saying, do I feel responsible for whatever decision my kids end up making as far as that's concerned?
Correct. And I would say their desire to be married.
No, I don't. No, I don't take the responsibility, but I would understand if they drew inspiration from what they saw or what they perceive my relationship to be, and say, "Hey, I want to try to have what Daddy and Mama got." Now, of course, that could be predicated on what it is Mama and Daddy got, because of course, if they saw me and Mama fighting all the time and throwing stuff at each other, then they may probably say, I don't want what Mom and Daddy got. So I think it's going to be their perspective of what they saw, and if they feel it was genuine, and that could influence what they decide to do. I don't feel like I'm directly trying to influence them with the way I'm living my life. And I would love for my son to see how I treat his mom, and think that's the right way to go about it. But at the same time, I also got to understand, trust me, I've tried. I can't control another person, not even your kids. They're going to do what they're going to do. So, but I hope I've laid out enough positive vibes and examples that they would follow it. But again, I can't control that at the end of the day.
Sharitha or Bridget, if you want to answer.
Yeah, I'll answer that. I actually encourage, and I have sons. It's funny. My oldest is 33, I have a 27-year-old, and then a 10-year-old. Yeah, go figure that one. But My two oldest ones, you know, they I think that they know me enough. I've had enough conversations with them to let them know that you have your own life and it's your journey. And I hope that I can do well in being a good guide and influencer for them. But I always tell them, you don't have to do what I do. Your life is your life. You know, this generation, excuse me, they have come in here, in my opinion, under a whole different energy. They, I just sense that it was time for them to break through the mold of what has been. So I really encourage that, you know, whatever they do is what they do, and I will, you know, love and support them either way. But yeah, I want them to be their own person and think for themselves. I am a thinker. I question everything, and you know, we're all on our individual paths and journeys, even our children. It's like you, and I agree with you, DeMarcus, when you say as much as you try to control your kids, it just ain't go. You can't do it, especially when they get into that puberty, you know, phase, and there's no controlling them, no matter how. Because I used to look at my sons and be like, "Good grief! Like I did not raise you to be. What are you doing?" But again, that's when I learned I had to kind of step back and recognize that they're little mini grown people at that time, and now they are grown men, so they got to step into their own. And I'm not one of those moms that try to control my son's lives and, you know, be all that. No, I stand back and let them learn whatever it is they got to learn on their journey.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, Bridget, you say you talk to a lot of millennials.
Yeah.
Do you feel any? Go ahead.
You know, like I know a lot of them, they're just like, no, I'm living my life. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I'm not doing it. But then I also know some that they're in love. They have a little family, you know, they're happy. They're growing, all of that. I try to influence love, you know, because I believe in love. I have a friend that she's just like, I'm done with men. I don't ever want to have to deal with the man again. And I think that is sad. I think it's sad because you still have your full life ahead of you, and you're allowing past failed relationships to influence your future. I just think sometimes people need to grow. They need to look within themselves and figure themselves out and grow before they make decisions like that, especially at an age where they still have a lot of life left.
No doubt. Thank you guys for answering that. I was just very curious on that. Now, as we wrap up today's almost that session, I'm thinking I'm on a coaching call. As we wrap up today's podcast episode, what final message or potential controversial take would you like to give on this topic? And we'll start with Sharitha.
Oh man. Ooh, controversial. I think I haven't been controversial enough, Mel.
Put a little hot sauce on it. Put a little bit more on it.
Put some Texas Pete on it. Controversial. I would have to say that women and men, this is something I think, and I briefly kind of mentioned it earlier. This kind of blows people away, but I really think that men and women naturally have that an antagonistic relationship. I really do. And that is due to biology. Our biology, we can't ignore this, yet we do it all the time because we want to live fantasies and not pay attention to the realities of why it can be outright dangerous sometimes for men and women to be together in the same household. Especially when you have two unhealthy minded individuals. But the pressure for people to marry and and again, I'm gonna use my husband as an example because I've been on, your prior podcast, and for those of you who have seen that, my husband is Muslim and I'm not. I'm more spiritual. And one of the discussions that I've had with him a few times is I'm like, wow, we're just generally talking, and he'll say a lot how young they marry. They really encourage us, like they're in high school trying to matchmake, or these young kids, so that by the time they come of age, they're getting married, and I'm like, these kids, they haven't even had a chance to really find themselves. And that's one debate that we have all the time, is that the pressure to get married is so strong. And I feel like, no, if I had it to do over again, I would not. I was one of those ones that always said, I was not having kids. I'm not having kids. I'm not getting married. It was something in me. And maybe it was the personal experiences or childhood trauma, right? That I experienced, but I have dealt with that and I have healed from it. And I still am not changing my stance that I would have definitely delayed that, but I got caught up in the fantasy. And I do see how we're so different. Men and women, it takes so much work and effort. But as I got older, I realized I speak my mind way more than I did. And, when I was younger. And so there are some things that I just flat out don't agree with, even though I participated in it. I did some of these things, but I won't say they're mistakes. It was just part of my journey and my life path. But, I have to admit, I had to do it all over again. I don't know. I probably would not be married or have kids. And like I said, not been in anything traumatic as far as my relationships, but it's just, I miss that I did not pay attention to myself a lot more. And there are regrets that I have for not doing that.
Well, that's indeed some hot sauce, I would say. Bridget.
I'm agreeing with Sharitha with the regrets, some life regrets. Like I think my biggest, I don't have a lot of regrets, but my biggest life regret is not having children. But I just want to leave with this. People need to, I think I said this earlier, just learn to love yourself, get to know yourself. I think, Sharitha, you were saying they're too young in high school to be preparing for marriage.
Right.
You don't even know what you want to do in life in high school. You don't. Just grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they pushed it a lot because, again, they don't want children born out of wedlock, which is the reason we're here tonight, on this panel. They
Right.
they don't want them having babies out of wedlock. So, but they teach them other, principles and morals at the same time. But I just still feel like, oh my gosh, I'll go in hard on trying to get these babies married, and then they're having kids, and they're not just having one or two. When they do have children, it's a lot. And then you find that the young woman is trying to, now she has her village, mind you, but it's just, I'm like, wow. To me, I view it as that is traumatic.
Yeah.
But
because
it's the culture that they have. So I don't,
deep down, are they really happy? I really don't think they're really happy. I had back years ago when I lived in South Carolina.
Some marriages are arranged.
Let me tell you, I met, I'm sure you know who this is, Benjamin Muhammad. And I don't know, I'm assuming this was not his only wife. I don't know. But she looked like she was about 19 years old. And I was working at a radio station at the time.
Be careful. That's what got Malcolm X killed.
I'm just saying, I was working at a radio station at the time, and I was over there in the corner, because I was about to talk to him. And so, I was putting some lipstick on and, doing my hair. And she was looking at me like, I wish I could do that. And I saw it in her eyes, because that's the only thing I could see, because everything else was covered. I saw it. And then when she realized that I saw her, she looked down. And I felt so bad for her. I did. I'm like, this girl is not happy, not for real. She's young. She's just not to say that being a wife is nothing, but she doesn't even know who she is. She was his wife, and she's following up behind him because that's what she was taught to do.
Exactly.
Only life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Bridget, I want, as beautiful said right there, I just want you to go back and finish your point on, if you don't mind, the regret of not having children.
That's my biggest life regret. I said when I was younger, I don't want children. I don't want children right now. I don't want children right now. And then when I got married, I think I was 29 when I was married. And when the only time we had sex was when I was ovulating. And it was like I would be, when I would come home from work, I would have to, they have the little ovulation kits. So see if I'm ovulating, and then we would have sex. And that didn't turn me on. But anyway, I still didn't really want to have kids then, because I knew our marriage wasn't going to make it. And I didn't want to be a single mom. And that's why I didn't have children before I got married, because I didn't want to be a single mom. And I felt like I was going to be a single mom, even though I know the type of father he is. He would have been in the child's life. At that time, I wanted the family, but I knew our marriage wasn't going to make it. And then when I met who was the love of my life at that time, we tried and I couldn't get pregnant. So that's why I never had children.
Yeah, Bridget, thanks so much for sharing that. Very powerful. DeMarcus, wrap us up here.
All right, and before I close, I just want to say, Sharitha, Bridget, it has been a pleasure sharing this stage with you both.
Likewise.
The insights I've heard from y'all tonight really refreshing, and you both are two amazing women. I never met you, but I know that just from hearing you speak, and so I really enjoyed that. So thank y'all, first of all. And I guess I'll wrap up pretty quickly by saying we have discussed a lot of challenges that marriage is facing these days, and a lot of them valid, of course. Marriage kind of takes some body blows right now, but I will still say, I won't advocate for marriage, because I still think it's something that can work, but it does need to be nurtured with a lot of love, a lot of communication, a lot of understanding. It's not just let's just get married and it's gonna be all good. So I still think it's a place for it. I still think it can work in a positive way, but it does take work. So I'm just glad everybody is, sharing that situation, that it's not a fairy tale. It's not all, rainbows and lollipops, no matter how you look at it. So even somebody like me who waving the flag for it. So I just, hopefully, if marriage is right for this next generation, hey, go for it. If it's not, I think we have established that it's enough independent, free thinking people to do it on their own. You don't have to get married. So I think it's a world for both. So that's where I'll shut my mouth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
Great. Love that, guys. Thank you so much for watching this, audience. I know you guys gained so much from this. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I want to hear what you guys got to say. DeMarcus, Bridget, Sharitha, Troy as well. Thank you guys once again. Hope you guys enjoy your evening. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Mel. Thank you for joining my channel. Thank you for checking things out here. Oftentimes, we go on people's pages and are like, man, what is going on here? What is the purpose of this channel? So let me be clear. The purpose of this channel is to speak truth regarding the nuclear family. And when I say truth, I'm not saying my truth, not your truth, but the Lord's truth. All about the word, all about the ways and the will of God. What does he have to say about the nuclear family? And I believe the generations of today, whether it be Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Y, whatever the case may be, I believe now we have a very toxic relationship regarding marriage, regarding family, regarding having children. We're in a toxic dynamic as we speak. And honestly speaking, a lot of the answers that we're looking for in our community, a lot of the cures and a lot of the answers would come from a proper, fulfilled family home. If you go down the line of everyone's individual trauma, there you will find some negligence or some type of issue that they had with their parents. So here on this channel, we address those things head on. We don't place fear in those issues and avoid the topic. We do what Jesus did. And when he said, don't assume that I came for peace, but I came with a sword. I came to turn family members against family members if it means you following me. If you have to cut them off, if you have to address them and have arguments for you to follow me, so be it. And I think at this point in our society, we're at the so be it stage. So here at Life Coaching by Mel, I'm all about bringing healing to that. And the number one way to do that is have honest conversations. So if that's something you like, that's something you're into, that's something you really want to be a part of, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to comment. Let me know what you think about everything. I do my best to respond as often as I can. I want to hear from you guys. This is not about me. It's about healing our nation, healing our states, healing our cities, healing our community, healing our homes. Love you guys. Take care.
Let's go.